love it when women are like shouting from the rooftops about their success.
Pop the bubbly. The Champagne Diet's Cara Alwill is on Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers.
I don't have to put my self-worth and my confidence and in the hands of anybody else.
Talking everything from rejection.
Not everyone's going to see your talent, your passion, your gifts, your beauty, whatever. Like, you've got to see it for yourself.
To reinvention.
I try to just act as if I'm already that person. And I can tell you that's like my biggest trick, and it always works.
And every bossy move we make in between.
If you don't put yourself out there and really put it all out on the line, like, you're missing out on like so many opportunities for growth.
Plus, she's sharing some big news.
I haven't even said this publicly yet, but
oh my goodness, so many fun things coming your way on an all-new Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers, a podcast dedicated to those seeking a more fulfilled and purposeful life through thought-provoking conversation, spiritual exploration, and authentic connections. The intentional movement has begun, and if you found yourself here, you are a part of it. Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers starts now. Hi, Cara. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. I'm really excited that we get to talk today, and we worked out our little technical kinks, and we actually get to connect.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes. Well, I know you've done a lot in your career, and I really actually want to touch base on something, this whole concept of rejection and reinvention, because I know that you've been there both. And I think that's so important to talk about, especially for us as women, as entrepreneurs, as people trying to find our voice and our authentic self. I think we need to give ourselves grace to be rejected. I think we need to give ourselves grace to reinvent ourselves as many times and as often as we wish. And I know you've done that in your career. So, let's go there. Let's start with rejection, because that's a big one. That's a hard one to stomach, but I think sometimes it's like the best thing that can ever happen to us.
Totally. And, I have faced rejection like everyone, right? In their career and like relationships, like it's just a part of life. And I think that so many people avoid putting themselves out there and being vulnerable and going for things because they fear the rejection. But the rejection is like, I think it's one of the best things that can happen to us as humans, right? It gives us an opportunity to look at that situation and kind of analyze it a bit and take a new direction in life. And if we never put ourselves out there and we never try, we never know, right? So like my biggest rejection, which you probably know the story, was my book deal. My first book was rejected by 19 publishers. I didn't even know there were 19 publishers. And I faced a point, I was really like dead set on becoming a writer and an author. And this was like over 10 years ago. It's probably like, oh my gosh, like 2010, 2011 at this point. So, I had to ask myself, like, do I want to continue to try and rewrite the book and do the things they said, become more famous and more well-known. And I wasn't a big enough celebrity, and the story, everything, the story wasn't original enough. My writing wasn't good enough. Or was this a chance for me to take matters into my own hands and really pivot and decide that I was going to self-publish? And at the time that was becoming an option, like a much more viable option for people. Amazon launched their platform. And I just went for it. And I was one of like the kind of like pioneers of self-publishing in a sense. And I've, self-published now so many of my books for so long. And if that had never happened, like I think it would have come too easily to me. And I don't think I would have been ready for what came out of, my author journey. I think it all sort of lined up the way that it was supposed to.
Well, I wonder what that is. Is it like a lesson when we're being rejected, or is it happening for us? Or, is it more of like test? It's almost like, is this a test of your passion and your power and like what you really want? Like sometimes that's the way I choose to look at it. Like I've had a big, long career in television, and then, things happened and changed during COVID. And now I'm here, and, there's more challenges, I think, now as an entrepreneur and someone finding their voice and stepping out. And I've experienced exactly where you are. Like I have written books. I'm a ghostwriter. Like those words that you get back to you, like you're not good enough. A lot of times that's where rejection lies. Like your story's not good enough. You're not original. You're all those things you said, and we can take those to heart. So it's like, we have to find something deeper within to really be able to pursue whatever that passion is. And I believe like, if you have that purpose or that passion in you, like you have to follow it. And I don't know if rejection's a test or if it's like holding you back for something better. I don't know. How do you look at it? Like, how do you rephrase that so that you can really go after what you want?
I look at it as an opportunity to really tap into your own self-confidence, right? And
Yeah.
believe that you're enough and really choose yourself and decide that like what someone else thinks of me is really not my business. I don't have to put my self-worth and my confidence and in the hands of anybody else, right? Everyone on this planet is going to have a different opinion of everyone, right? Like no, you're not going to be loved by everybody. You're not going to be chosen by everyone. Not everyone's going to see your talent, your passion, your gifts, your beauty, whatever. Like you've got to see it for yourself first and
Yeah.
foremost. So for me, it's just an opportunity to show up differently, right? Because I think, when I was younger, especially like most of us, like we all, and even now, right, we deal with rejection and it can sting. But I think I look at it as an opportunity. I kind of like avoid the word test because that to me makes me feel like, oh, I could fail, right? Or like this is
Oh,
like, I'm going to do it wrong.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just, it's an experience. And it's also, like I said before, it's like part of life. If you don't put yourself out there and really put it all out on the line, like you're missing out on like just so many opportunities for growth.
I love that you said that. Like you avoid the word test because, can we really do it wrong? Like ever?
No, I don't think so. It's funny. I've been talking so much about relationships now. I know it's different than like the business stuff, but like, I don't think there's like a wrong person for you. I don't think there's a wrong relationship. Like, I think everything's experience, and I think we try so hard and this goes for business and love, right? We try so hard to like wait for the perfect thing or, but every single situation, every person we meet, every opportunity in our careers, like it's all like molding us into who we are, right? And
Mhm.
every single scenario is giving us a chance to grow in a new way. So I don't really think we can mess anything up in life. I think if we just choose to view everything as a learning opportunity, it's like a beautiful thing.
Well, how does that growth play into like the reinvention of yourself? Because I mean, to me, that is exactly what we need to do. That is what we are here on this planet to do. That is why we are here is to grow. And if we're not growing, we're not living. I've said that 1,000 times on the show and on online everywhere. But like, how do we use that to help us reinvent ourselves and accept that growth? Because growth is scary. Change is scary, challenging relationships, any whether we're business relationships, all of it. It's all encompassing. It all deals with that same stuff. And it's scary to go into that unknown and reinvent ourselves.
It's really scary, but I always ask myself, when a situation arises where I'm like, okay, here's a challenge, right? Like I was rejected by someone or something didn't work out the way that I planned. I ask myself, like, the woman that I want to be, right? The
Mm-hmm.
highest, most ideal version of me, what would she do in this situation?
Mm-hmm.
What would she say? What would she think? What would she believe? And then I try to act in alignment with her.
Yeah.
So I try to take myself out of the me that I am now, and I try to just act as if I'm already that person
Mm-hmm.
and make those moves and believe those things and say those things and be her. And I can tell you that's like my biggest trick, and it always works
Yeah.
because it's like it just gets you out of your own head a little bit. It's like, okay, I'm gonna act like someone else, like the person I really truly am aspiring to become and evolving into. And once you do that a couple of times, you realize like you are that person. It's just a matter of like moving in alignment with that vision.
So how do you do that though? How do you bring that belief in? Because we can act a certain way. And this goes back to like how you started with the champagne diet, which I love because like back in high school, yes, I drank in high school quite a bit. And I was known for like carrying around like a bottle of like what cooked champagne or some like cheap ass champagne, in a brown paper bag. Like that was my drink. But here I am, I'm not living those champagne dreams yet. Still, that was what, 20 odd years ago, or maybe even more. I don't even know how old I am now, right? But like how do we start to believe that version of ourselves? I can show up with that glass of champagne, but I also have to believe it. That's, I think, where we get lost in that reinvention and like terms like manifestation or showing up as our best self. Like we have to also put the action and there has to be a belief system ingrained in us as well. And that's where I find the biggest challenge.
Yeah, it is tough. I think there's a few things. I think number one, first and foremost, just constantly like reiterating it to yourself, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is how I choose to show up today. Like, it is a daily practice. It's just like going to the gym. It's like doing anything. You can't go once and expect to have the body of your dreams or be stronger, right? You've got to continue to do it and work it like a muscle and practice.
Mm-hmm.
So in the beginning, it does feel a little bit weird because you're like, I'm choosing to believe that this is going to work out for me. And you're like, well,
Yeah.
how do I know? Like, I don't have the evidence, I don't have the proof. But the more you do that, the more you start to see, like, it actually does start to manifest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, I believe that I get everything that I want in life. If I believe that money flows to me easily, I believe that I can have healthy love, right? Whatever it is that you're choosing to lock into, you've got to continuously almost like brainwash yourself of that in a positive way. And then I think secondly, it's who you talk to. The
Mm,
conversations that you are having, if you are constantly talking to people who think negatively, who are coming from a place of lack, who feel like nothing ever works out for them, you're going to start to feel like, well, maybe she's right, or maybe he's right. Like maybe this is the way the world is. Maybe, money doesn't grow on trees, or
yeah.
I'm not going to ever find love, or, whatever those things that we hear from people, right? Like, so depending on what it is, that you want to manifest and bring into your life, like I encourage people to like just surround yourself with people who are either doing it or believe that they can do it.
I 1,000% agree with you. I mean, a community of like-minded individuals is, I think, probably one of the most underrated things that we can bring into our life. But so many of us are surrounded by people that aren't growing with us. And that is also a challenge. And that is part of a reinvention. That is, I think, one of the harder parts to take on, is because, like, you don't want to just cast off people in your life because they don't believe the same way as you. But sometimes you outgrow relationships.
Oh, totally, 100%. And, a good way to notice this is if you have a conversation with that person and you were in a really good mood, right? Before you got on the phone with them or saw them, and you feel yourself, your energy is getting depleted. You start to
Yeah.
second guess yourself. You start to feel that drain. That's how I know. I'm like, all right, this person is unable to hold that kind of conversation with me. Or maybe even
Mhm.
worse, this person really needs to just be like eliminated from my life. And, I think people hear that, like, and they think you have to cut people out violently. And it's not really
Yeah.
like, you can lean out of relationships, right? You can answer the phone less. You can decline the dinner dates or whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be like this dramatic fight or, anything that's like going to completely like hurt someone else. But I think you do have a right to surround yourself with the people that lift you up and make you feel good. And I don't think you should feel guilty for that.
That's hard, not feeling guilty for that, because, I find that most of the times when we're talking about that, when you're separating yourself or creating some distance because you want to move in a new direction, it's usually not from the acquaintances.
Yeah.
That's the easy one to like kind of be like, okay, we're going to see each other a little bit less. It's usually those closer relationships or those longer relationships that really actually affect our mindset and really can bring us into that space, because the person on the, yes, we care what people think about us. I don't think anyone in this world doesn't care truly, honestly, what people think about us. And do we care what our neighbor thinks about us? Of course, but it's not going to affect us the same way as someone close to us. And I think that's a big challenge, especially as women that are trying to change course in their life in any way to really stomach. I mean, I know I struggle with that greatly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. And again, that's just where that like self-confidence comes in, right? And that feeling of
Mm,
like, I love myself. I know myself. I know my value. And whatever someone else says or thinks or does about me, yeah, it might hurt, but then I can also separate it, right? It doesn't have
mm,
to be my truth. It's just because that's how they feel. I can separate it, respect how they feel or don't feel, but always come back to me. I have a little post-it on my desk that says you can always come back to yourself. And I just
mm.
love that little reminder because it's like no matter what's going on around me, I can always come back to me and remind myself that I know who I am and I love who I am. And it's taken me a long time to get there, and I still struggle. I'm 43 and I still have moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, this didn't work out. Like what's going on? But ultimately, like again, it's just that practice that every single day that I've got to like look in the mirror, look at the post-it, talk to myself, call someone who also believes in me and pumps me up, and surround yourself, like I said, with your team, even if it's one person, your little
Mm.
a team of people that love you and want to see you win and believe in you in the days when sometimes you can't believe in yourself.
So is it like that for you with anything, building up that body of proof, whether that's like getting through that rejection, whether it's getting to that self-love, whether it's reinventing and becoming the person you want to be, you have to like take these steps to like build that body of proof, because no matter what, no matter how successful you are at in any of these ways, you're going to face times when you're going to doubt yourself, or you're going to come up against something that like makes you second guess or question it. I don't think any of us ever get rid of that.
No, definitely not. It does come up. And I think, again, it's just like you said, body of proof. I love that. I always say, look for evidence,
Yeah.
like look for the evidence that what you want to happen can happen. Look for the evidence that you've already been successful. Look for the
Mm-hmm.
evidence that you've already made the income. Like it's, we get in our heads and we can really psych ourselves out about so many things.
Yeah.
It's not easy to look for the evidence and the proof, but like it's the only way, right? It's the only possible way to get through it, is just to be like, I trust myself. Look at everything else that I built. Look at everything I've been through up to this point. What makes me think all of a sudden it's not going to work out for me anymore? Like
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Why do we do that? Why do we like downplay like everything that we've accomplished or overcome in our lives? I mean, I don't know one person that hasn't accomplished or overcome something. It doesn't
I know.
matter what kind of scale, like, but I think our first instinct is always to like downplay it. Oh, like you're so amazing. Oh, no, I'm not. Thanks. Like we always just downplay anything about ourselves. And that is just so not helpful. Like we need to be our biggest cheerleader ourselves.
For sure. And I think especially women, like we're taught to be humble and be quiet. And we were, at least, right? It's different
Yeah.
now. Things are changing, but I feel like, our generation growing up, and I just think like we were always taught to kind of like, don't brag,
Yeah.
don't say too much, don't make anyone else uncomfortable. Like we keep the peace.
Yeah.
But, like what's the point? Like if you can't celebrate yourself and share your accomplishments, like you're not, I think we'll do it in a mindful way, right? Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not like, I don't think anyone really brags. Like I think there's a difference between trying to like bring someone else down by lifting yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for the most part, you sharing what you're proud of and celebrating yourself, I think gives other women permission to do the same, right? And it
Yeah.
shows people what's possible for them. I love it when women are like shouting from the rooftops about their success, because I'm like, well, if like just like my book Girl Code, that's like the whole
Yeah.
point of the book, right? If she can have it, I can have it too. So if you put yourself out there and you share what you've accomplished, someone sees that, it's inspiring to them, right? And if you find yourself feeling envious, because we all do that, we all sort of
Mm-hmm.
stack ourselves against people, just flip the script on that and turn it into inspiration, right? It doesn't have to be jealousy. I think when we're jealous, it just means that we want something that that person maybe did or has. And that's like a sign that you recognized your desire. So now you can actually work towards it.
Well, it's almost like, jealousy is actually a gift in the way to show us what we may want or what we desire. Whereas comparison is kind of almost the opposite. I know we do. And in our culture now, comparison is like so huge, like, oh, I'm better than them or they're so that. And I think that's where we can fall into that trap. But I even read a stat the other day that like, women are introduced not by their accomplishments, but men have no trouble doing that. Like, if a man has become a doctor, he has that doctor in front of his name, they're always introduced as doctor. Men will introduce other men as doctors. But if a woman is the doctor, more often than not, the man will not introduce her with that title. But women, on the other hand, will introduce everyone with that title. And I find that very interesting, like this difference between men and women and how we do that. And so, like, what is it about us? Like, is it just going back to that humble, play nice in the sandbox that we've been taught? Or like, why is it like that men are okay with it and like we struggle with this?
Well, I think it's a lot about the way that we were raised. I've done a lot of research on this because I've looked into and done a ton of research the past like 3 years about relationships, especially successful women, and how
Mm-hmm.
we relate to men, in love and in romance. And, there's so much study, so much research out there that shows that little boys were raised based on their accomplishments, they were raised to be proud of what they achieved, right? Very competitive kind of way of being raised. Women were raised, to be proud of their partnerships and their friendships and their relationships. So
Yeah.
everything was on emotion, right? Like we were raised to be emotional and to use those words. Men, are praised for like, wow, you beat that team, you won that thing.
Yeah.
So it's just the way that we've been bred, right? So we have to kind of like, sort of like deprogram ourselves in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just be like, I'm worth more than being a nice girl. There's more to
Yeah.
me. I'm allowed to feel good. And I think to put that into practice, you've got to be able to like just say the thing. Like I'll never forget one time I was at a business meeting in Miami and somebody introduced me as an influencer. And I hate
Mm-hmm.
the term influencer. And no offense to anyone who likes it, I hate it. Like it just
Totally.
sounds like I'm selling myself
It
short. And I
sounds
said,
catty, right?
yeah, it's like, and it also feels like, oh, is that all that I do is have an Instagram page? So this person introduced me as an influencer, and I said, actually, I'm an author, and I held my hand out, and I shook, and she was like, whoa, and I'm like, well, but that's what I am, like, so we
Mhm.
have to, and I wasn't bitchy about it, it wasn't me, like, it was just, no, actually, I'm an author. So standing up for yourself and also letting it be known, like letting your success like speak and not being afraid to correct somebody or to talk about what you've done, I think is really, really important. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you become with it.
Well, let's flip that, because the idea of like being raised for our accomplishments, I think, you know, as a firstborn daughter, I've taken that on. And I think there's something to it. And you've done a lot of research on relationships. So I think there are studies that are shown that, the firstborn is usually raised as a male, with that idea of a male mentality. So it's like a lot of what I have taken on in my life is, love is my accomplishments. What have you done? And that also like takes us outside of ourselves versus coming back to like, we all have ourselves. We can always come back to ourselves. When we put so much on that, what that outside thing is. So, I mean, I don't know if men struggle with that, getting to know who they truly are because of that. But I know as a woman, as a firstborn daughter, as a type A, as a go-getter, like that has become my identity, and it does not serve me well.
No, it doesn't. And especially like you said, with men, they're raised to believe like if they can't provide something for a partner, this is where it gets interesting with like successful women in relationships. If
Yeah.
you're the breadwinner and you're the one that can provide for herself financially, let's say, a man more often than not will feel like he doesn't see his value because
Mm.
he doesn't feel like he can give you something you can't. When in reality, what we might need is emotional support from that man, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just about like learning how to validate yourself. And I think in relationships and in life, we can tell the other person what we need, right? We can
Yeah.
say, like, I am, I need this from you, or I am more valuable than my accomplishments. I do have these qualities about myself. And it's just, it's a communication thing, I think.
Do you find it hard as, doing this research with successful women, finding like true, like authentic relationships and love? I mean, I've been in I have lots of friendships that, any woman that has been highly successful in their career is, for the most part, I'm generalizing here, has struggled to
Yeah.
find a solid relationship. And a lot of us haven't found them till later in life.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I was married for 10 years and I met my ex-husband right when I was kind of coming up in my career. So I didn't really have that dynamic, but I've been divorced now for almost 4 years and I'm definitely noticing it. And I think it's because, like you said, we're so, like, especially successful, ambitious women, we're so, like, we're always in boss mode, right? We're always in that
Yeah.
massive energy of like, and we have to learn how to like tone it down when we're in our romantic relationships. And it's really hard to shift. I noticed from always being the boss in life to like maybe like now I'm not really the boss in this relationship. It's actually can be 50-50 or it can be partnered. I don't have to run the show and control everything and think with my brain all the time. I can feel things, right? And I can
Yeah.
like just and speak from the heart and not always be thinking and be strategic about it. So it's definitely difficult. And the men that I've talked to have also the same thing. Like, I want you to be a boss and it's a turn on and it's so hot when you're in your job. But when you're in the relationship, can you be softer? Like, you don't have to run everything and control
Mm.
everything. Like, let's do this together, essentially.
Well, yeah, coming back to the feminine is all about like this concept of receiving. And it doesn't mean that you can't do for yourself, but it's this act of receiving is what is the feminine, the divine feminine, which I've talked about a lot on the show. But like turning off boss mode. I mean, when you're that person, holy hell, is it hard to do? Like I have 2 young kids, I have a husband, and I'm like building a business. It doesn't stop. Like I can't get out of my head. How do we like allow ourselves to just shut it all off? It's not easy.
It's not easy. I think that we have to, speaking of receiving, be able to receive feedback from our partner. I had someone that I was dating tell me once, like, you say things to me in such a harsh way, and even when I'm saying something that's like loving, it's like the way my delivery. So I
Yeah.
think it's like taking that, and I actually really took that to heart, and I like started to shift the way that I spoke to him
Hmm.
because I don't want to be like that. I want to be soft. I want to feel good. I want to feel like I can say things and be like my divine feminine. I can be in my softer energy. So I think it's just recognizing,
Mm.
how we might come across, maybe asking for feedback from a partner, like, hey, like, what do you need? I love this question. Like, what do you need from me today?
Mm.
Right. Like what, and then having them ask you the same thing and showing up as that person or trying to at least give them more of that. But yeah, it's definitely difficult. But I think we also need to realize it's not a responsibility, especially with you being married and a mom and a business. Like, it's a lot, right? Like you
Yeah.
feel, I'm sure, the responsibility of taking care of everybody, but it's not. Like, we have to allow other people to show up for us, right? And other people to step in and do their job. And it's the hardest thing in the world to like take your hands off the wheel a little bit, but it's the only way.
Well, that goes back to the way we've been brought up, I think, too, is like the self-sacrifice. Like we've been taught that we have to give so much of ourselves to everyone else in our life that we don't actually bring back and give to ourselves. Then it makes it really hard to understand, how do we even answer that question? What do we need today? Like it's really actually simple questions I find are sometimes the hardest. Like, what makes you happy? What do you need today? What do you enjoy? Because we are so brainwashed, or it's so ingrained in us to be like, how can I help you? Which is actually great in your business. When you're coming at your business with this, like, how can I serve? It's so good. But sometimes we need to also like, how can I serve myself?
Yeah, totally. Taking time alone, even if it's 15 minutes, like yesterday was like a Sunday morning and I took like an hour to myself and I just did a couple of things that made me feel good. Like I put on like really pretty silk pajamas and I put on jazz and I lit all my candles. And I hadn't done that in so long. Like I work pretty much every day. I work for myself and I work from home. So it's always computer. But I was like, I just want to create like a vibe this morning and I want to like feel good. I made coffee and it shifted my whole entire mood. Like I had the best day. I felt like I was in my feminine. I felt like I was just in a better mindset and I felt like happier, And I think that we have to realize that sometimes even if it's 15 minutes to do something for yourself, take a really luxurious shower, go buy yourself like an expensive shower gel if you can, or, do little things and take the time to do your makeup or your hair. Like it really makes such a difference. And it gets you out of everyone else's opinion of what you should or shouldn't be doing. Going back to what we said earlier about who you're talking to, right? It's easy to wake up and just be reactive. Answer the text messages, answer the phone calls, get on the phone call with your friend, solve everyone's problem. That's being in our masculine, problem solving, right? Like all the time. Like, how can I fix this? How can I change this? What if you just took a step back and be like, no, this first 15 minutes of the day, half hour of the day is dedicated to myself. And I'm just going to flow and feel what I want to feel. And then I can go help everyone else, right? It doesn't have to be an extreme. It's not like, oh, I'm turning my phone off for the day and not going to love on the people that need me. But like, it's just recognizing where you need to pour into you.
I love that you use the word should. I always say that should is like an unofficial 4-letter word. Obviously, I know it's not 4 letters, but like whenever we're putting that should in front of anything, it just it just ruins it. It's like it's the party pooper. Like it messes the vibe so much. And you are just such a master at creating the vibe. I mean, essentially as your come up, like that whole idea of like, okay, I'm going to hold this glass of champagne and this is creating that vibe. And this is, putting on your pajamas. This is creating that vibe. Like, I think there's so much to that, creating the surroundings, whether that's the people you're with, the energy of your room, whatever you can do to create the surroundings for that person that you want to be, to show up in.
Yes. And that's how you become truly magnetic, right? That's how you draw people to you, money to you, love to you, clients, friendships, all of the beautiful things in life. It's when you're radiating that happiness from within, right? When you're radiating that energy of like, she's doing what she wants to do. Like that girl's living her life. Like we're attracted to that, right? Whether it's in a business partnership, like if I'm going to hire a coach, let's say I want to hire a coach that's like living like a gorgeous life. And I don't just mean aesthetically or financially, just like somebody that seems really happy, somebody that seems really sure of herself, not someone who's frantic and stressed out all the time. And in that energy, like I'm attracted to people who are living beautifully. So I know that if I live beautifully, I will attract in what I want. And it works every time.
So what have you attracted into your life lately?
Great question. So definitely new experiences. So I'm doing a new book. I'm in the process of writing it, and I have just been connecting with so many people in a different space. So like obviously I do personal development as a coach and my podcast and everything, but this new book is an essay collection and it's about dating and relationships. And it's like I'm in a whole new world now, in a new space with new people that are not coaches and that are not necessarily entrepreneurs, but they're writers in this category. And it's just really beautiful because I'm getting to connect with people in a different genre, different area, who run things differently. So it's been really fun, like getting invited to readings and literary salons and all different types of events. That's been great. Relationship wise, it's not that I've attracted in different relationships, but like relationships have been improving around me, I've noticed. And again, that goes back to trusting yourself, right? And everything being the experience that's meant for you. dating someone and watching them grow and evolve into a better version of themselves, and while you're simultaneously doing the same thing, that can only happen from a space of pure confidence, right? And feeling really, really good within you, and not asking that person for things or asking them to change, just allowing them to change and grow.
Mm-hmm. I think those are the most beautiful relationships. I mean, when you can grow together, it's so fulfilling to be on that journey of growth together and watch each other blossom. I don't truly know anything that's more fulfilling from a relational standpoint.
Oh my gosh, I think the hottest thing in the world is like reading a book with your partner, like reading a personal development book with your partner, like, and both talking about it and wanting to get better. And it doesn't mean everyone's perfect and you still may have issues, but like for sure, seeing a relationship where you can both bring up you already see the best parts of each other, but then you can help amplify those parts and help them, become even stronger.
Yeah. Like my husband and I, like, I swear our love language is sending each other like snippets, like self-development snippets from Instagram. Look what this said. Oh yeah, this is you. Oh, we communicate through our day so much with that. And so much of maybe it's because I'm in the space too, and he's in the space too, but like, he's in it from a different, he helps people, receive their mental health care. And, I'm here, talking to people on this but we come together and it's such a passion, I think. And maybe that's what it is. It's more of just finding that passion. Maybe it's not like, oh, you have to be in self-help together, but allowing each other to grow and share.
Well, yeah. And just a growth minded person, right? It's like, it's the fixed versus the growth mindset. Yeah. I think I always want to be in a relationship where I'm with somebody who's growth minded. And if they're not, it's not going to work, because I'm evolving every day, all day, and I want the person I'm with to be open to that as well.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So where are we going to be able to follow you and get this new book? Where do we, obviously, I'm sure your podcast is everywhere. I know it's everywhere, but how do we follow along with you in your journey? How do we follow your influencer career?
So my influencer account is at the Champagne Diet on Instagram. That's the best place probably to connect with me, because if you go there, you'll sort of see what my latest and greatest is. And then you can go to the links, in my bio and check out like the blog. I highly recommend, if anyone's interested in this content, like subscribe to the blog, because I talk about all the things. I sneak peek the book often. I've got a couple little excerpts on there. And yeah, my podcast, and yeah, I'm around. I'm all over the place, so it's not hard to find me.
What book number will this be for you? Is it 10, 11? 10. Oh my goodness. Congratulations. How exciting. I love that. And I love that you're taking it in a new direction. Is that scary for you?
Oh, it's so scary. And I will tell you, I never thought I was really a perfectionist, because I'm very much of that mindset. Done is better than perfect. Just put it out there. Mm-hmm. This book, I have put so much pressure on myself because it's new. And I'm like, I have to constantly every day be like, Cara, just do it. Like, just the more you think about this book, it's not going to appear out of thin air. You just got to write it and trust that it's going to be exactly what it's meant to be. And I have like a writing coach who's new to me, who's amazing, but she's really pushing me creatively. So it has been, God, like at least a solid year in the making, but I've been dreaming it up for like 2 years, which is the longest it's ever taken me to write anything. So hopefully you guys will like it. It'll be worth the labor of love that it's been, but yeah, it's been a process.
Well, I find that anything, and I'm a writer as well. I ghostwrite, I do all the good stuff like that. And to me, it's those vulnerable messages. And so it sounds like you're getting pretty vulnerable in this book, but that's the best. That is the best. That's how we connect the most. That's really what brings us together as people, getting vulnerable. And it is freaking scary.
Yeah. And that's why we can't be afraid of rejection, especially with, like I keep saying, with relationships. Like this whole book is like born out of all of my heartbreak, and it's funny, but like it's all failed like relationships, basically, if you want to use that word. But to me, they're just experiences, right? So like it's very vulnerable because I'm putting it all out there. But if I hadn't taken a chance on love all of these times, like I wouldn't have these stories to tell, and I wouldn't help somebody else feel less alone maybe with what they're going through. And I think women especially try to paint that picture, everything's perfect and my partner's perfect and love is great, but it's not always like that. We know that, you've been married, like it's a lot of work to make something work.
Yeah.
So
well, and what aren't our best stories and our best experiences usually from like when we fall flat on our face? I mean, and then we can look back and laugh at it. It always works out that way. I swear it does. Even the worst things.
Even the worst things. I haven't even said this publicly yet, but I'm launching a canned sparkling wine brand with a good friend. So it's like, we call it canned champagne, even though it's not true champagne, it's sparkling wine. But the name of it is Belle Chaos, which means beautiful mess in French. Mm-hmm. is both of our stories, and every woman I know, and I'm sure you too, our stories,
Yeah.
like the most beautiful things come from the mess. So stay tuned for that in 2024 also.
Oh my goodness. So many fun things coming our way. Thank you so much, Cara, for joining me today. I love this chat.
Thank you so much. This is great.
And that's it for today's Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you, Cara Alwill, for such a fun conversation all about relationships, reinvention, and rejection. If you want to follow along with Cara and all the fun stuff she has coming out, her new book, her champagne line, and her influencer account, I'll put all the information in the show notes below. And as always, you can find Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers and Intentional Media on our website at CourtneyMyers.com. That's where you'll find our books, our courses, and everything else we have coming up. Can't wait to talk to you soon. Bye.